Hi everyone, my name is Chidera Zani and you are welcome to Glee Sports Instagram Live. Today on the live, we'll be talking to an African duo of Ferdinand Omanyale from Kenya and Christian Payton from South Africa, a hockey player, while Ferdinand is a sprinter, 100-meter sprinter. And these athletes are doing Africa proud, they're doing the university sports system in Africa proud, and they're doing themselves proud. Today, we'll be chatting with them on achieving their Olympic dreams and what other things that has happened in their life in those times. It's promised to be an interesting chat. Stay with us as we'll be talking to them in a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Kenya's 100 meters record holder, a record he broke and still holds in Nigeria. He broke in Nigeria and still holds. Of course, he's been to the Summer Universiade before in Taipei, so he knows what it feels like to be part of the university sports system. While Christian, of course, goes to the University of Johannesburg. Um, she's not she might be just going to the Olympics, but she's no novice when it comes to South African hockey. She's been part of the team since 2018, so it's big ups to her and others. So these are our guests for today. So let me kick it off with, guys, it's every athlete's dream to go to the Olympics, and for you to finally get here. Last year, COVID-19 wasn't friendly, so it halted almost, in fact, all sports events. So, how did you feel when you knew you were finally going to take part in the Olympics? I'm going to start with you, Christian. How did you feel when it became a reality that you were going to go to the Olympics?
So our journey for the SA women's hockey team was a little bit different because we were waiting on our Olympic body, SASCOC, to decide whether or not our qualification process was going to be upheld and if we were actually going. So while we were facing, sort of, are we going because of COVID, it was also, are we going and will our Olympic body send us? And then it was actually at a friend's bachelorette weekend where we got the news to say that SASCOC were going to be sending us to the Olympics. And we had obviously missed out in 2016. So for SA hockey, it was a massive, massive thing. But for me personally, like, this is a journey that I've been on for the last 7 years. So it was pretty exciting at first. And then obviously COVID hit and, our sport started getting cancelled and our movements were restricted. So our training became really difficult. So it's been a very, very emotionally challenging time. And I don't think people sort of understand how emotionally taxing it has been. I'm kind of at the point where, there's 6 weeks to the Olympics and it's supposed to be the most exciting time of your life, but I'm kind of just sitting here going, like, I actually just need a break and, like, I just feel exhausted. So it's also a little bit nerve-wracking because obviously, the games start on the 23rd of July and we have to travel out. And in that time, we have to pass negative COVID tests. And from pretty much now up until when we fly out, it becomes a case of you need to pretty much self-isolate so that you don't catch COVID, because then your chance of going is pretty much null and void. So it's stressful, but in the same light, this is something that I've wanted to do for the last 7 years. So that's kind of where my focus is. As much as, it's challenging, you just kind of got to keep your head down and keep going and sort of hope for the best in these really, really strange times.
It was a great moment for me because it's something that I've been looking forward to. For every athlete, every kid out here, everyone wants to be an Olympian. So it's a big thing for me. It was a great thing for me to run that time actually. But it later hit me later on when I went back to my hotel room. I did not realize it at that moment. It came in later, but it was a great thing I did. But I was prepared for it actually.
So how has it been for you, especially for you, Ferdinand, because you went through that process that every athlete hopes to avoid, where you were punished for the doping situation, and having to come back from that and go to being a triumphant athlete now. Like, how have you been able to handle some of the some people will still try to remind you of the negatives. How have you been able to handle that?
Okay, for me, I always say you handle each day as it comes. I mean, each day comes with its own challenges. but you cannot let the challenges drag you down. So, and for me, it's I always dwell mostly on the future. I don't always look at the past. If you come and talk to me right now and then you're telling me a story, I don't always dwell on the past. I believe the past shapes our future. So, like my case when I was banned in 2017, I did not allow that to be a problem for my future athletics. I came back stronger, and I wanted to prove that that was just a mistake that I did. I was a naive boy by then. So it's something that has been bad for me, but I can't say it dragged me down because you can see I'm running fast still. And then it was a painkiller for real. I mean, so I can't
Yeah.
say that it's something that I can I mean, like, I don't look at my past. Yeah.
All right, very essential to look towards the future. So, for both of you now, let's go back to Christine. I would personally like to know, like, what's the weirdest routine you have before a game or a ritual or something? You know, some players or athletes have to wear the left shoe first or the right shoe first. Like, what's yours?
It's weird. Like, I'm not a superstitious person at all. But I do have to warm up with the same person. So that's my friend Rob's. So it's also like difficult when the team selection changes and you don't have that person anymore, because that just messes up your routine completely. But also, like, every morning I wake up and it's game day, I'll always make sure like I have breakfast, and before we get ready to go into our team talks and stuff, I'll go and get a coffee from, like, I don't know, we have like Seattle's and like Starbucks and stuff like that. So I'll just make sure that I get a really nice coffee before I have to get ready for the game. And then, yeah, other than that, I've got no routines or superstitions. I think that would stress me out more, and I'm already an anxious person, so I don't have time for that.
All right, Ferdinand, what's yours?
I don't think I have any, but generally I have to eat. There are some athletes who say they can't eat before races, or they're having a lot of adrenaline pumping. But for me, I have to eat. I have to eat before races. And then I don't think there's something that I always do. I just trust in God that every race becomes the best race of my life.
Wow. Okay. Now, Christine, South Africa seems to have this, for the rest of us in Africa, a perfect university sports system where you have like, you know, actual workings, especially in the schools themselves. How has this, like, were you always interested in playing hockey? How has the school made a difference for you?
Yeah, I think so. I've actually played for my university club team since I was in grade 11. So that's what, 16, 17 years old. But I think Ferdinand hit the nail on the head. You know, we have so much competition in South Africa, so that's why our university systems are so successful. Not only, you know, do the universities have sports teams themselves, but they function as clubs. So from senior hockey right down to junior hockey, you know. So it creates that competition. That, and the fact that there is actually a lot of money and sponsorship that goes into funding tournaments like USA's varsity sports across all sports, you know, hockey, rugby, athletics. So I think when you kind of have that support, then it's easy to run these tournaments because you have the money and you have the infrastructure and you have the competition to run it. But I think, like Ferdinand says, you know, it's provides such a good platform for athletes. And, you know, it's not even just athletes that are going to be professional. It's athletes that may actually never be good enough to be professional, but they have that platform to be able to showcase their talents. And I think, like, with us, we've had a tournament called Varsity Sport, and that tournament has an age limit of 25. So obviously, USA, anyone can play, and generally you have a lot of your older athletes playing in those tournaments, where Varsity Sport, you have a lot of your younger athletes. And the growth that I've seen in some of the athletes over the years has just been exponential in comparison to if they didn't actually have that opportunity and if they maybe potentially didn't have that age gap. So, yeah, I think, like I said, when you have the three things being infrastructure, money, and sponsorship and support, then it's easy to run these things. And, you know, it would be nice in an ideal world that companies and big corporates got more involved in stuff like this, because, you know, it's this that makes for really successful athletes. And sports is one of those things that can bring so many people together. You know, you stop looking at your differences and you start looking at the fact that you actually just enjoy sports and supporting people. And that's really important.
Very important, very, very important indeed. And, you know, hearing, I'm sure Ferdinand is a little bit perplexed when you talk about funding and the situation, like from the outside, the South African setting looks set to go. You know, you don't just have, like you said, the varsity sports where you even have women's competition going alongside that of the men. Ferdinand, what do you think could be done differently in your country? Because I know we have some of your administrators listening. So what could you think they could do differently to make the situation, especially for the athletes, a little bit different?
Okay, at the university level, I think they should focus more on sports, because actually in Kenya, most of the guys in Kenya don't do sports. Like for me, it's a special case, I must say, because if I look back 3 years back since I joined, let's say 5 years back, since I joined the University of Nairobi, I've never heard of any other athlete coming out from there. So they need first to mobilize students, that this thing can be done alongside your education. And then another thing is to organize tournaments, serious tournaments, not just tournaments, because you'll find they're organizing an event in Kenya and then they're taking a university game to a Maram track. And then there's no timings, there's no electronic timings. So see, like, if someone is doing that, there's no seriousness in that. So if they can just take the university game seriously, there's so much talent out here that can grow to become professional.
We know finance is a big issue, but like, what else do you think can help, especially on the athlete's perspective? Let's start with Kristen.
Oh gosh, that's honestly such a hard question, because, like, you know, how do you start doing this if you don't have the infrastructure? You know, like Ferdinand speaks about not having a track to train on. Like, how do you become a serious athlete without having the bare basic thing, you know? So, and when it's like difficult for him to organize athletics meetings, like, who does he run against? You know, like, he's the best. How does he get better if he's only able to run against himself and, you know, his time? So I don't know, that's a really hard question. I think the biggest thing is, you know, just for potentially people to realize that, like, the work that you do, it is an actual job. Promoting these things is a job that you can make successful and you can make money off of it. And you are only going to find out about these things if people do. You hear about these things, and the more you hear about stories like Ferdinand, the fact that he's coming out of a Kenyan university with a time of 10.01, 10.03, somewhere around there. You know, how do you do that? That's an amazing story without having all of the infrastructure that a USA athlete has, you know? So I think it's promoting these types of stories for people to actually realize that there are so many more people like us that are working so hard to try and make something happen with relatively little in comparison to the USA, to England, to Australia, you know. And I think if people hear more of these stories, that it'll touch them, and you'll see big corporates investing into sports, and, you know, I think that's possibly where it could grow.
There's not much infrastructure in Kenya as far as sports is concerned. But for me, I always say you have to bring it out yourself. You can't sit there and then you're saying you're waiting for the government or someone to bring you facilities. You have to start it with yourself. Use what you have to get what you want. So, I mean, like, if you have the talent, just push it, because you can't wait for the infrastructure. The story of infrastructure is not a good thing in Kenya at all.
Okay, now, Kristen, you get to play some of the best in the world. You were at the World Championships, I think it's 2018, and then you have the opportunity to play the likes of England, Australia, the USA, these people who you actually think have their structures a little bit better. What do you think? How excited are you for these games? And how are we going to beat them? Because we're Team South Africa now.
So in 2018, it was like my first big international tournament, and that was a World Cup. And I was obviously really young, 21 at that stage, with like 5 international caps, you know, playing against an Argentina, a Germany, who are some of the like top 5 teams in the world. So, you know, I was that young, naive kid back then, and I think I'm a very different player now, and, you know, I'm going to have the opportunity to play against those teams again, but being a better player and being what I believe is more physically and more mentally and skillfully capable. So I'm super excited to kind of see how I fare. As much as it's a team sport, it also becomes a bit of an individual thing, so that you can see your growth. But yeah, it's weird, but it hasn't sunk in yet as well. I think once you go into holding camps and once it's difficult for us as well, because I'm not sure about you, Ferdinand, but we haven't been playing international test matches, So at the moment, we don't really have anything to compare ourselves to. It doesn't help comparing myself to the player that I was a year ago when I played international matches, because I'm not the same player and the players that I would play against aren't the same. So I'm nervous in that regard, but I'm really excited to see what I can do in comparison to the little naive kid that I was when I first, played my World Cup.
Okay, I don't want to let that affect me or the pressure get into me, because every day I wake up to Google alerts on my email. People have written articles about me. So I don't want to let that pressure sink in. Let me just handle every day as it comes. But I'm really excited actually to get to the Olympics and compete against the big boys, as they are called in quotes, the big boys. So I hope I get in the finals, of which I know I will. And then after that, then we'll know if we'll get a medal or. But I believe it will be a good championship for me. I'll handle each race as it comes. The heats, the semi-finals, the finals, and then a little bit of excitement, but yeah, really excited for it.
Wishing you guys all the best. I'll follow up on you and make sure that if nobody's telling your story, Glitz Sports will tell your story specifically, just because we care about our university sports athletes and we are sure you guys will do the best. So before you go, any last thoughts? Something you want people to hear? Something you want to say before we go? Let's start with Kristen.
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity to chat. It's always nice meeting people, fellow athletes and African athletes, because I just don't think we do this enough, As much as we're South Africa going to the Olympics, we are also Africa going to the Olympics. So I think that's important. But I think to everyone at home, obviously it's going to be a very different games for us. Ferdinand's going to run in an entire empty stadium. I'm going to play in an entire empty stadium. So watch from TV and, send your support via social media, because that's really the only interaction that we're going to get. So.
Okay, Ferdinand, you?
Okay, for me, it's sad running in an empty stadium, but I'll try. I always love fans because they bring the adrenaline out a little bit. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to at least speak and hear the thoughts of Christian.
Of course, thank you so much for being part of this. I wish you guys all the best and good luck.
Great, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Well, that was quite an interesting chat, don't you think? It's been an interesting time in African university sports, and a whole lot more will be coming up in the year after the Olympics. The African University Sports Championships will be holding this year, from 3x3 basketball to the distance runnings to tennis and other tournaments. We're going to keep you updated on those right here on Glitz Sports. Do follow us in that one. Now also, Glitz Sports will be introducing its first series, helping African university students who are interested in reporting university sports to get from just being interested to actually knowing how it works. In this series, the first series will be having Nigeria's duo of Colin Udo, who is a sports writer for ESPN, and Tracy, who is an OAP. So we're having someone who teaches you how to write, and the other person who teaches you how to be an awesome sports radio host. So I hope you join us. The link to sign up for this event will be under this video. So do click on it, register, and join us on the 19th of June 2020 to be part of this amazement. Even if you're already an established journalist or just a sport athlete who just wants to know how journalists do what they do, make sure you register for that one. Right here on Glee Sports, we will be bringing you other things happening in African University sports. Don't forget to buzz us, follow us, and send us messages when things are happening in your university. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episodes of African University Sports. I hope you have a fantastic day, and do join us very soon. My name is Chidebere.